Go.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
How is everybody?
Good.
I'm Olivia DuBro, and I'm going to be talking about gender neutrality. I'm sure everybody has heard about the Supreme Court ruling to rule in favor of same-sex marriages. So the LGBT community has made big strides in America recently, but they're hoping for more. But they're intruding on a sacred ground: grammar. But first, before we talk about grammar, let's have a quick introduction into understanding gender. Your gender identity is how you personally identify yourself. Your brain interprets different chemicals, such as hormones, to understand if you are more on the woman's side or the man's side, but there is an in-between. Cisgendered people are people who identify with the biological sex that they have when they're born. Agender people feel like they have no gender. Gender fluid people, it depends on the day. Two-spirited people believe that they have two genders simultaneously. Transgendered people believe that they are the opposite sex of what they were diagnosed with at birth. There are a ton of other gender identities, but these are just some of the most common. This is different than your biological sex. In our society, we've been wired to believe that biological sex and gender are synonymous, but they're not. You can be female or male, and this is based on your sexual organs and your reproductive organs and your hormones and chromosomes. But sometimes your gender identity and your biological sex just don't match up. Can any of you name anyone in pop culture who doesn't identify as cisgender? Anybody? Yes.
Miley Cyrus.
Yes.
She's gender fluid.
Ruby Rose is an actress and model who was in Orange is the New Black. She's identified as gender fluid. I'm sure you all have heard of Caitlyn Jenner, who was formerly Bruce Jenner. She is a transgender woman. Steven Tyler has self-proclaimed himself as half and half. And Miley Cyrus has also announced that she's gender fluid. These are just a few of some of the prominent names that don't identify themselves as cisgender. So, if they aren't boys and they aren't girls, then what should we call them? Some people think maybe we should call them it, or whatever they look like maybe, or maybe the pronoun that matches their biological sex. It is completely degrading, and just because we don't understand something doesn't mean that we should put something down. We could call anyone anything that they look like, but that's offensive as well, so we can't just do whatever we think they are. Or we could go by what their biological sex is, but that's not fair because we're not taking into account their gender identity and what they feel like they are. So, the LGBT has decided to introduce a whole new pronoun. This pronoun is sie and zer, which I'm proposing is a bad idea. First of all, there's going to be massive confusion. Pronouns are cognitively fundamental, which means they're wired in like hardware. Do you even remember when you first were introduced pronouns like he and she? They're nearly unconscious to you now. There's also the factor of that it sounds kind of weird. How many of you would be comfortable at first having someone refer to you as Z or Zer? It kind of feels unhuman. And the goal is to get people to be more accepting, not more turned off to a new idea. In the beginning of Gone Girl, one of the main characters, Nick Dunn, who is accused of killing his wife, starts out the movie by saying, "When I think of my wife, I always think of the back of her head. I picture cracking her lovely skull, unspooling her brain, trying to get answers." This quote has a lot of importance to the movie. It creates a lot of strong emotions. If we replace all the pronouns with zer, like the LGBT community is proposing that we do, it would sound more like, "When I think of my wife, I always think of the back of zer head. I picture cracking their lovely skull and spooling their brain, trying to get answers. It definitely detracts from the entire tone of the quote. Instead, what I propose we do is use the singular they. It's easy. Most people already use it on purpose or on accident because they don't realize that it's technically grammatically incorrect. A lot of traditionalists will say that this is grammatically incorrect, which it is, but languages evolve as do the people who speak them. We used to say nauseated, now we say nauseous. We used to say sneaked, but now we say snuck. We used to say dived, but now we say dove. We now say we're going to or we need to. Before that, we said we should or we want to. And before that, we said we ought to or we shall. Language is a human science, which means that it's constantly evolving, like philosophy, psychology, or sociology. This is a quote from Grammar Girl. She's a grammar lecturer and a senior editor and a writer. She states that she believes that in the future, as we move more progressively and inclusively, that they will be an acceptable term for gender neutrality. It's easy, it's normal sounding because we've already had exposure to it, and it's inclusive for all people. The notion of sie and zer is silly, but don't let this silly thing make you think that gender inclusion is silly. Use the pronoun they. Thank you.